This is another video where we use the distance equals rate times time formula. And whenever you're doing these, you want to find out things that you know. First off, let's just talk about the problem. Well, you've got city 1 right here, and then you've got city 2 over here. And what's happening is you've got two trips that are being taken. Trip 1 that goes from city 1 to city 2, and then trip 2 which goes back. And so we have our first trip and our second trip, maybe is a good way to say it. And the key for this problem is recognizing what it is that you know and what it is that you don't know. Well, one thing you know is the rate of the first trip is 20 miles an hour, and we know the rate of the second trip is 30 miles an hour, right? So rate trip 1 is 20, that's going from 1 to 2. Rate trip 2 is 30, that's going from 2 to 1. You also know something about the distances. You know the distance of the first trip is equal to the distance of the second trip because they're just traveling to and from the same city, and so that distance is actually the same. And then finally, you also know something about the time, and that is the entire trip from 1 to 2 and back to 1 took an hour and a half, and so that means the time of the first trip plus the time of the second trip equals, and in this case we're going to call it 1.5 hours. Now remember, we needed to do that in hours because our rates were in miles per hour, and so they have to be the same units. And our distances is going to come out in miles as well because we're using miles per hour. Well, we know that from this formula that we have rate 1 time 1 equal rate 2 time 2. So now we can just plug things in. We know that rate 1 is 20. Time 1, we're going to just be T1. But for time 2, what we're going to do is we're going to subtract time 1 in this equation and get 1.5 minus time 1. So I'm going to manipulate this equation to solve it. And so that's going to give you 30 times, and then it's just going to be 1.5 minus time 1. And so when you go through and look at this, you're going to get 20 times 1. You're going to do the distributive property to get 45, 30 times 1.5. And then 30 times T1, which is just negative 30 T1. Add 30 T1 to both sides. And that's going to give you 50 T1 equals 45. And so time 1 is going to equal, well, 9/10 of an hour. 45 over, when you divide both sides by 50, 45 over 50 simplifies to 9/10. And so if time 1 is 9/10 of an hour, we can find, it says how many miles is it from city 1 to city 2, so that's distance of 1. And so all we need to do is multiply the rate, 20, times 9/10, and that's going to give you, so distance of 1 is going to give you the rate of 1, which is 20, times the time of 1, which we just calculated to be 9/10, and that easily multiplies to 18. So the distance between the two cities is 18 miles. And so it takes 9/10 of an hour to go there the first time, and then just it's going to end up being 6/10 of a mile to go back the other direction. But the correct answer in this question is 18.